order, November 6th at 7:03 p.m. Will you guys join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Copeland
Here.
is here by teleconference. Tom Baylor,
Here.
Ken Jones,
Here.
Jeff Gard,
Here.
Melina Meyer,
Here.
and Schaefer is absent. David Allison
Here.
and David Gleason.
Here.
That's a quorum of council.
Move to approve the agenda. Second.
All those in favor of approval of the regular agenda, say aye.
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 Those opposed? All right, disclosures, conflicts of interest, and ex parte communications. Anything to disclose, council? Seeing none, we'll go to communications. No guest speakers. Audience comments regarding agenda items. Anybody from the audience want to comment? All right, seeing none. Chairpersons and representatives of boards and commissions. CCMC board.
Greg Meyer, TCMC board. First of all, I'd like to thank the CCMC staff, 60 plus employees, doing a great job under somewhat stressful circumstances with our PERS situation and MVE possible transition. It's been kind of stressful on them, and I just want to publicly thank them for everything they do, and they're a real important piece to this community, life-saving piece. So I'd just like to thank them. And I'd like to thank you guys for our PERS money. Looks like we got pretty much caught up. We just have some interest to pay after they calculate all the wages. And in August when I was here, I asked for 1.45 million for that PERS debt. And looks like we just paid, well, the hospital paid 508,000, and you guys paid 964,000. So looks like we're a little under budget, what I was asking for, and there's a couple of reasons for that. We were under about 100,000, and there was a credit, IRS credit to the state forfeiture fund, and it was about 135,000. So anyway, looks like we stayed on budget there. We have about 30 days of cash on hand, about 900,000 in the bank, so we're in good shape there. I know in August I told you we should be able to make it to the end of the year, and looks like we're in good shape there. We picked up a couple of swing beds, so we're doing all right financially for now anyway. Randall's been renegotiating some contracts, and we're changing some vendors and trying to save costs. We got our health assessment out to key stakeholders. Barb Jewell and staff did a great job. They're doing a survey monkey survey, and that's out now. And talks with MV are going good. We've got a couple little issues with staff jumping ship early over to Alanka, but we're working that out, and I think everything will be fine. So MV's done a facility assessment. They got about $150,000 into a physical facility assessment, and all the legwork's been done. Now they got to do all the reports and whatnot, and that should be done in about 2 months. And they offered to share that assessment with us. And they're doing a financial assessment right now, and they got about $50,000 into that, and they should have that done soon. They said a month or so. So they're going to have about $200,000 into assessing if it's going to work out for them, and we should get a good report out of it. The condition of the facility, code-wise, and upgrades and things like that. So I think everything's going fine. And I appreciate the dollar amount put in the budget. Just seems like if we don't put it in there, it has to come sometime. It's just so hard to cut personnel. I've asked over and over, asked the last CEO, every meeting, can we cut? Can we cut? And it's always no. We can cut office people. And before we had office people cut, and we kind of got in a financial bind, and I don't think that got us anywhere. So they keep telling us we're at a bare minimum. We got to staff for emergencies and whatnot. So anyway, we're doing the best we can. So, and thanks for the money. Appreciate it.
I had one question.
Oh gosh.
The 964.
Yeah.
That came out of the permanent fund, so we approved 1.3, I think, right?
Yeah, yes.
So you only ended up using.
We will probably need about 100,000 more. So as we get our interest calculations, should come any time now.
Okay.
Maybe in a week or two, and we calculated them about 90,000. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks. Looks like nobody's from the school boards here. Student council.
Yes. This week, the high school has launched our vaping awareness campaign. Each morning during the morning announcements video, we have a section dedicated to facts and stories about vaping. In each of the restrooms and stalls, we have posters with anti-vaping slogans and information. The student council is already considering the campaign a success because we are having conversations with our friends who are vaping, and some have made the commitment to quit. Ultimately, that is what it comes down to. It comes down to individuals holding those important conversations and convincing their friends and possibly family members to quit. Alaska is the only state or territory in the United States that does not have a teenager who has been hospitalized because of vaping, and we would like to keep it that way. But we are seeing an increase in underage vaping, and so we're holding this conversation so that it doesn't happen. Thank you. Any questions?
Nope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Approval of consent calendar. Is there anything that anybody wants to remove or comment on before we take a roll call vote?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
You don't have to move it. I'll just
Okay.
take the vote as long as nothing's coming out. On the consent calendar, David Allison,
Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Ken Jones,
Yes.
Jeff Gard,
Yes.
David Gleason,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
and Ann Schaefer is absent. The consent calendar is approved.
Move to approve the minutes of 10/16/19 council regular meeting. Second.
All those in favor? Oh, I guess I should ask if there's any discussion on the minutes. Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? No bids. Mayor's report. Clay, you were on the phone?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I'll just be available for a little window here before they start boarding. But I'm in Juneau and had an opportunity this morning to meet with Forrest Bowers, the Deputy Commissioner of Commercial Fisheries for Fish and Game. In two of the Cordova Fisheries Advisory Committee, Gus Linville and Ron, well, actually pending council approval, Ron Blake, and then McKenna O'Toole, the Shellfish Chair of CDFU, and I met in person, and then two other Cordova Fisheries Development Committee members, Bob Smith and Andy Craig, called in from Cordova, and we had what I felt was a very productive discussion. I think there's a fairly good chance that we'll see the evolution of a cucumber fishery, sea cucumber fishery, in the Sound in the next 3 years. That's a work in progress, and it looks like we may be able to have a path towards opening up the Tanner crab fishery a little bit. So that was a primary purpose, and I hate to miss council meetings, but I think right now advocacy on fisheries and the marine highway system are just important, if not more so. Less productive and less encouraging by far was a meeting with the Deputy Commissioner of the Alaska Marine Highway System, Mary Soroki, and I wish I had some good news to report, but it's actually worse than I expected. The snapshot right now is no service until May 15th, but they can't even say if the Aurora is going to be fixed or when, and kind of a stretch goal is to try to get the Hubbard manufactured, built in the water so that it can start service in Prince William Sound. So it's very discouraging. I did ask that they schedule a stakeholder meeting as soon as possible to pull in Shoreside Petroleum, the local shippers, the regional users of the system, as they look at modifications to maybe add berths on that and make door modifications so that they can consider things like accommodating freezer vans and other really important business elements of a new ferry, and also recognize that it needs to have Whittier runs. So I requested a week a month of Tustamina service, and Representative Stutes has been supportive of that. And I was able to have follow-up meetings later this afternoon with Cliff Bishop's office and with Matt Greening, Representative Stutes' chief of staff, and with John Bittney, our lobbyist. And I will say that there are some other opportunities. The Marine Highway System does have budgets in reserve that the Legislative Budget and Audit Committee can access for operational and maintenance funds. And just about every ferry layup and maintenance project is going dramatically over budget. So right now the administration is trying to decide whether to fix either the Aurora or the LeConte. That means that we would only have one boat for two routes, southeast and Prince William Sound. So that's why I'm really skeptical about what boat's going to be available to even serve Prince William Sound. So that's where it's at right now, and I hope to meet with the commissioner in Anchorage here the next 2 days and get a little more clarity and make it clear that that's not acceptable to our community. And I would just say that the administration does have a bargaining unit agreement in front of them with the IBU and other unions, and there is a chance that that might get ratified, and that would change the conversation a little bit about some of these winter routes and maybe even which ferries and the number of ferries that get repaired. So I was also able to meet with Percy Frisbee, who's a lobbyist representing the IBU, and that's pretty encouraging. It sounds like unions are in a position to ratify, and I hope that we get a little bit better news in the next few weeks, but right now it's pretty miserable. So that's really what I wanted to share is fisheries and ferry updates. And I would say one was very positive and the other one is pretty depressing. And that's all I had to add unless there's any questions.
Any questions, council? Nope. Thank you, Clay.
Yes, thank you.
Manager's report.
I don't have them today.
Clerk?
I think I have a written one in there, and I left off a date, so Tina and I will both be gone 18th, 19th, and 20th, but back on the jet, obviously, from AML. So the meeting on the 20th is fine to have. We'll keep it on the schedule. And then I sent an email today because the mayor on this trip thought about the fact that he doesn't have a city ID, and the police department does create city IDs for city employees, and the mayor and council can get them as well if they're interested in that. And the instructions on what to do are in the email you'd get with Davina at DMV. And then I've talked about it before, and I added this language under executive session, if you see, just so that I'll keep that on every agenda, so that any agenda item could possibly lead to an executive session and would be okay, but we still would need to make the very specific motion to go into executive session and for what reason. But, and then if there's ever an executive session on a different item that is not on the agenda, I would still have to ensure that it does make an agenda. We can't just have any old executive session at any time. But that does help us with any of the items that are already on an agenda. And that is about it. I can answer questions if you have any.
Yeah, I had a question about the class action
Oh,
lawsuit.
yeah.
Says that you talked with the city attorney about it, so.
Yes. Basically, it gives us an opportunity to opt out. I think the only people opting out are ones who may have their own litigation going on already on it, which the city of Cordova does not. So Holly's advice at this time was to just do nothing. So that's it, but she thought you should see the information. And so everybody has seen it. It's in the packet.
Any questions for the clerk, or I should have asked if there's any questions for the manager too. So I'd open it up for counsel for anyone.
Totally concur with that. I don't think we want to get into an expensive independent lawsuit with drug manufacturers. That sounds like a nightmare.
All right, and it looks like there's a lobbyist report on page 50.
Yes, I asked John that question. I knew he'd know it better than, easier for him to get that together than for me to try and research it. So I think Mr. Baylor had asked that question at the last meeting, so that's the status of that.
For the oil tax?
Yes, the petition moving forward at the state level.
Rollback SB 21. Yes.
All right, correspondence. Does any council member have a comment about any of the, or wants to talk about any of the correspondences in the packet?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the mayor for getting a letter out on the rock slide, and appreciate that. I think the people out at White Shed appreciate it.
All right, seeing no other council members, we'll go on to ordinance and resolutions. Resolution 11-19-46 on page 58. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing amendment to the 2019 budget in the amount of $18,000 for EMPG GY19 grant and the $18,000 city match. Is there a motion? Any motion to approve, put on the table?
So moved.
Second? Can I second?
Yes?
All right, a second. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Okay, I don't know if I've got a whole grasp on this, but it's my understanding if we want to acquire our grant money and hold on to our grant money, this is bookkeeping that we need to make sure happens or we don't get our grant money. So for no other reason than to save our grant money, I move to approve.
I can
Yeah.
speak a little bit to this. All of these amendments that are being requested, the resolutions from Dean, are basically housekeeping to move funds into the appropriate category. They were either not reflected appropriately in the budget from the beginning, or they need to be addressed as he's outlining here. So none of this changes the action that the city has already taken in terms of allocating resources or agreeing to spend the money. It just moves them into the appropriate revenue and expense categories.
Yeah, that was my understanding of all these resolutions. Is it was just bookkeeping, basically, to get our budget amended because we already approved a certain budget, and because we got grants and applied for different things, that changes the budget for this year. I remember talking to Dean this summer about a couple of them, and I see them here now. So he has been working to try to make sure our budget was appropriate to the grants that we applied for and received. So I think all these resolutions, I have the same opinion about, that it's housekeeping work, that we just need to approve them. Any other council comments?
I just
Discussion?
wanted to verify this, Dave Gleason, so we already got this money and we're just moving it.
Exactly. So
Okay.
unlike the way I run my budgets at my house, which I probably should do tighter like this, but every single dollar that comes in has to be in a line that the council has approved. And if it isn't, there'll be a budget amendment to move it to those places to make sure that it reflects the will of the council.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Vice Mayor, this is Allison.
Go ahead, Allison.
Yeah, I'll just make a general statement to start with. I'm not big on making paperwork adjustments at the end of a year just to make the budget look good or balance closer to that. I'll support this, but that's my first comment on it is I don't like doing it outside of the budget and I know we didn't get some of these grants till after the fact, but we've already spent the money. We've already done all of this stuff. So just passing a budget amendment now to make the budget look right, I don't agree with. Second thing is, and it's a general comment on all three of these resolutions or all three of these budget amendments, is if we can get consistent in the future, they're all three stated a little differently. Some of them have numbers, some of them don't, some of them have descriptions. One of them, I don't have the paperwork right in front of me, but one of them had coming from the permanent fund reserve and it had the word permanent in there. And I just want to clarify that this is all general fund stuff that we're talking about,
My
not
understanding,
permanent fund.
yeah, so I think you were talking about the one for the pool. And again, insurance, I believe, I may be mistaken, that money was used and that the insurance monies were received after the fact and are reimbursing that. So again, it is a paper trail, but it's required by a,
But it's not from the permanent fund.
right. Correct. I mean, maybe the reserves were used initially to pay for that, to start it. I don't know.
Because it takes us 7 votes to do it. We didn't do that. So.
Okay. So anyway, back to the audits now require with city governments that every single number has to go through council approval, or we get into trouble and get audit notes and get our hands slapped. So it is a housekeeping thing, and it seems maybe a bit odd, but because of the way city government has to be transparent and everything has to fall into a budget that the council has actually touched and approved, these amendments are required by audit. So that's why Dean is recommending them, and it does bring us into compliance. Yeah.
I don't disagree with that at all, but it should have been done before we actually spent the money instead of afterwards. The whole point of being transparent is to be transparent before it happens and not after it happens. So,
Yeah, point well taken.
That's my
Yep.
comment on it.
Yep.
For the future.
Yep. Thank you.
Anyone else from council on the phone? All right, the question has been called. All those in favor of ordinance?
It's a roll call.
Okay.
Sorry, when unbudgeted money is a roll call.
Roll call, please.
On item 20 there, Melina Meyer
Yes.
and Schaefer is absent. David Gleason,
Yes.
Ken Jones,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
Tom Baylor.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Resolution 11-19-47, a resolution of the, on page 63. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing amendment to the FY19 budget in the amount of $32,082 for the 2019 DPS grant for the purchase of a K-9 officer and various public safety equipment, and a 10,000 NVE grant for the K-9 officer.
So moved.
Second.
Would you like to speak to your motion
No.
or your second?
No.
All right. Any other discussion? Roll call.
David Allison,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer is absent. Ken Jones,
Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
David Gleason,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
and Jeff Guard.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right. Resolution 11-19-48 on page 66. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing amendment to the FY19 budget in the amount of $32,723 for insurance reimbursement for the damage to the Bob Corn Pool.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Nope.
Roll call.
On item 22, Ken Jones,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
David Gleason. Who's got the TikTok?
Did you say Dave?
Gleason? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
David Allison. David Allison.
Yes.
Sorry. Motion carries 6-0.
Resolution 11-19-49 on page 68. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing amendment to the FY19 budget in the amount of $9,000 for the city match to the EMPG GY18 grant.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Would you guys like to speak to your motions? Any discussion?
And I guess, yeah, we're just basing all of this on the explanation that we got that this was house cleaning, basically. The money's been spent. No.
All right, roll call, please.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
Ken Jones,
Yes.
and Dave Gleason.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, moving on to new and miscellaneous business. City council role in negotiating and approval of the collective bargaining agreement between city and IBEW Local Union 1547 on page 70. This is a discussion item.
Yeah, Mrs. Vice Mayor.
Do we need a motion to get it on the table?
Not really. Not if it's a discussion item.
Okay, go ahead, Jones.
Well, I asked for this to be put on, and I do have a motion in mind, but we can do that later. And basically, I would like to see council's role in approving the collective bargaining agreement changed. Currently, we have no say in if we accept the outcome of the negotiation or not. And as we can see from this year's budget dilemma, it can be a pretty extensive drain on our resources to not have a seat at that table. And we see in the packet the memo that has the attorney's opinion, and I would like to see us move forward with that attorney's opinion in mind on to what we can legally oversee.
If I could make
Yeah.
a point, I have been involved in collective bargaining negotiations in the past with board of directors overseeing me as a director, executive director. And what I found really helpful and might be useful is that you as council set some parameters. This is how far we're willing to go. It's a very confidential number. It is not made available, obviously, before the negotiations. And that at every moment, there's a fiscal note provided by staff to council so that they know how those impacts will hit the budget. And I think there was maybe a communication There's some communication that could definitely go on that would keep council informed, and at the same time, council could help the negotiating team know what the limitations were in advance of those negotiations.
Yeah, I would completely agree, and I know that other entities have board oversight or direction before they go into their CBA negotiations, and I just would like to see that be a change the city makes for council to have a little more role in that in those negotiations.
Vice Chair.
Go ahead, and then we'll go to Tom Baylor.
Okay, so Dave Gleason. Yeah, so I agree with Ken 100%. And I think this last go around taught us a lesson. So that's all I got.
Well, I guess I would suggest you just ask for concurrence, and I think the current city manager has a pretty good handle on that and kind of agrees with the direction that we want to head. We've got probably 3 years to get this done, so I think it's something that we want to get done, and we could maybe put off to the side, and when we get caught up on things, we could maybe bring something forward and have that discussion. But I think probably all agree that this needs to happen.
Right, we already heard from Chu on the phone and Tom here. I also agree with everything that's been said. I think Helen had some good suggestions, and that's the direction that I'd like to see it go to. What about Jeff, your thoughts?
Everybody's covered what I was thinking.
All right, so maybe Dave Allison, I think you're the only one that we haven't heard from.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Just remember too, we can always say no when it comes time to vote.
True story. Any other discussion on this item? Okay, so now we're on pending agenda, calendar, election, and appointed officials list.
Vice Chair, this is Dave again.
Go ahead.
I meant to say this a few weeks ago at our last meeting. I got several complaints from people, and I've actually heard Ann and the Science Center weren't very happy either about the smell coming out of Ocean Beauty's fish oil plant. Now, I don't know if we can do anything about it, but Trident seems to have gotten theirs kind of under control, and maybe we can write a letter or something next summer or this fall to the plant manager there at Ocean Beauty, and just maybe he can check with Trident and see what they did. I think it's about the temperature, how you cook it or something. Anyway, it's pretty tough to work in that all summer long. And if we can help in that as city council, then whatever we can do, that's all I'm going, that's my goal.
I agree. I would like to put that on a future agenda item, or if staff can just come up with something to bring up to us as a
Just want to
odor.
or make contact with them, or?
Tom Baylor?
Yeah, and you might want to check with your planning department, because when that was permitted, there may have been some things covering noise and smells and things that I was on at the time. I can't remember, but it might be an option to check with the city planner.
So if staff could give us an updated,
I think I have had comments from the public also on it.
I think all of us probably have heard something about it.
If we can come up with something ahead of season instead of dropping a bomb on them after, during, or while, we may get better response from it.
Just coming off that last agenda item, I will put an ordinance change to Title IV about the collective bargaining agreement. I'll put it on pending agenda, and maybe we can get to it in the new year, if that would be okay.
Yes. Clay, do you happen to still be on the line?
I think he was getting on a plane.
I'm sorry, the loudspeaker was going really loud in the background here, and I didn't quite catch that.
You still are on. Okay, I just had a question about the First Alaskans. You haven't been able to make contact with them yet, have you?
I'm sorry, they just keep talking nonstop. Give me just a second here. Okay.
I was just curious if you
Okay.
made contact with First Alaskans Institute about doing a tribal 101 training.
I have made contact over 3 times, but I haven't gotten a response.
Okay.
I have to try a different path there.
Yeah, I know they had a couple big events, and they have their other biggest event coming up in the next couple weeks. So maybe we could do that after the new year.
Okay.
I had a question also about, we forgot to even talk about the proclamation. Clay, are you going to be at sobriety, or else can Melina go to maybe kind of give them that proclamation? That's usually what happens.
I think I caught part of that. I am going to be at sobriety, and I'm offered to read the City Council's resolution to the audience on either Saturday morning or Friday afternoon or both.
Okay.
And I'll just mention that Representative Stutes is going to be here as well, and she's going to, the chamber's going to be getting the word out, but she wants to have kind of a briefing to the community on marine highway system, fisheries, and other issues. And I think that'll be on the 14th, but we'll be getting that word out as well.
Okay.
All right. Any other future agenda items, Council?
Well, are we definitely going to do the next week work session after school board, or should we see how tonight's work session ends first? We can.
Let's see after.
Okay.
tonight.
And then on the 20th, Helen will not be here. She'll still be at AML. So you guys, does anybody want to have a work session or on a different topic?
I can call in to whatever.
Okay.
So
So I guess we'll play that by ear too after tonight's work session and maybe next week's work session for the 20th. Got it.
And then, Melina,
Yes.
just one other item. It looks like I may have an opportunity to meet with the governor on the week of December 2nd, I think, and that's likely going to happen on the 4th or 5th, and that would mean another council meeting that I would miss. But again, I think that would be a pretty important opportunity, and Bert Adams is going to be there as well, and we would like to kind of co-meet with the governor to represent the community. So that little piece. And then also, just to kind of cheat back to my mayor's report a little bit, I did ask Matt Greening about the status of the 2016 pink salmon disaster relief funding, and particularly the cities. And it looks like the allocation to the fishermen may be a bit contested. If not, those checks would be going out in the next 6 weeks. But the cities' disbursement calculation numbers should be available about in January when the cruise shares are calculated. So I just wanted to give that little update as well.
All right. Thank you.
Darn, we can't budget it then.
Yeah. You want Council before we move on to comments and adjourn and go back to our work session? All right. Hearing none. Audience. Anyone from the audience want to come up and talk about anything you want? All right. Council comments. I'll start on the phone. Councilmember Jones?
Sorry I couldn't be there in person, and thanks everybody for coming out tonight.
Gleason?
Yeah, I had one question to ask you. I missed a little part of Greg's comments there, and so the CCMC, they did put 900 and some thousand towards PERS debt. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was out of the permanent fund that we had allocated.
And we took out 1.3 million. So where where is the rest of that money?
He indicates that there's still an interest calculation that the state is having to make. He expects it'll be somewhere between 90 and 100,000, and then there will be some money left over. But they don't have that exact interest calculation from the state yet.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And then I just would say thanks for the public comments. And sorry I couldn't be there in person, Helen, for your first meeting, but just the way it worked out.
There will be more.
Yeah.
Councilmember Allison?
No comment, thank you.
Councilmember Baylor?
Yeah, I guess that's just a small issue that my phone keeps ringing on this one, and I don't know if it's a problem or not, but seems to be a issue with perhaps staff parking up on the front, taking up parking spots for the public, and I don't know if there's a policy regarding that, or I don't know if it's an issue, but you can have that discussion with your staff.
Okay,
And
good.
you know, and I have experience coming in here trying to find a spot, and I don't know if they're employees' cars or not, so they may be all just doing great. I think the other thing is, I don't know, when you get time, I think if you could maybe shoot out emails, letting us know, and maybe you've done it, I've missed it, letting us know that when you'll be in town and when you'll be out of town,
Yes,
because,
I have not done that. I will do that.
okay.
Thank you.
And just so everybody knows, that was part of our agreement with you. We understood that you will be coming and going until after
Right.
the first of the year, and so.
I
yeah.
will communicate that with
That way I
everyone.
don't have
Thanks.
to call staff and get, is she there? So, thank you.
Councilmember Guard?
At some point in time, I'd like us to revisit where we are and what we're doing on the Beecher case. This thing has drug on for the 3 years I've been sitting here and has been just about to be done a whole bunch of times. And now we've been sitting here waiting for an update.
Yeah, Holly's in the loop every time I ask for agenda items, so I always ask if there's an update and if she needs any ask
No,
for
I
it.
understand, but I mean, we
So-
haven't got anything, and it's,
I think there's nothing to get yet, but
I don't know if we can
Yeah.
approach the court to say finito, stick a fork in it, it's done. But I'd like to see that go away.
okay, we can just have it on the next agenda if you want. We'll just make sure she comes and gives us something on the next agenda. Oh, sorry, this is comments, I guess I should.
Okay,
Any other comments?
that was my comment.
All right.
I just
thank-
need another bite at the apple on that one. Is that all right?
Yeah.
So, and
Are we
that's
reverting to your comments?
comments.
All right.
Yeah, and that's, again, it was disappointing, the sale of Coho. And it seems ongoing with our legal team that a transfer of a piece of property should not be an issue. You should be able to get everything you need. Normally, you don't even need a lawyer or a real estate agent to do this, it's title company. So perhaps in the future, we can look at our legal team, and we've done it once before, maybe it's time to do it again, but just commenting to you knew, and that I have not been happy with the representation that we have
Okay,
got.
okay, got it.
And I think others can contest to that, so thank you.
Okay, so thank everybody for coming, and yeah, that's it. We'll go ahead and adjourn. Or
So moved.
looking for
Move to
So
adjourn.
moved. Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. And
Come on,
take like a 5
minutes. Okay.